All right, what's up, y'all? Today is the 21st of May, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is In the Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 123, titled It's Not Their Fault. And I'll get into it. We'll do it as we do. I'll play a little guitar for the intro, talk about each of the four sides of In the Image Clothing Company, talk about where clothing sits, and then we'll get into the discussion. So let's play a little bit of something on Red the guitar here. A little bit untraditional, unorthodox and untraditional, bro, as we talk about, right? Holy cow. No, I love it. Yeah, there we go. Red the guitar, little 3/4 size Johnson JG610R with nylon strings, because I'm Evan Strong and I do crazy things with nylon strings, even though this is a steel string guitar, design-wise, okay? So, yeah, in the Image Clothing Company podcast, we have deep discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. We're all human beings on the same earth, designed by the same God. We just talk about it as it is, okay? I'm sinful by nature, as we all are. So I never say anything perfect by any means, but yeah, there you go, okay? 122 episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast up until this one, so we got some experience behind us in this. We've got some beautiful discussions that you can listen to learn things about just this life as it is, because a lot of people don't quite know how to navigate. And yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, I get that, definitely. So another fourth of us is the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, where it all started, still our main side. Our key word is allowing the human body to work. Really, the whole phrase is that, okay? The human body is just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space. It's just hinges, levers, rotations, operation in the ways that it has it. Earth's gravity pulls us straight down, and there's a center line. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and then our jaw naturally stabilizes our entire body. From the center, we have feet, and they oppose the center line on each side, gripping arches inward, keeping us vertical. So there you go. Okay, clothing is placed onto our bodies and it has to stay centered, because otherwise our bodies won't be able to. Okay, staying centered, fitting correct, where I'll discuss in a minute, being made from 100% natural materials is how In the Image Clothing Company clothing will always be, to allow the human body to work. Our bodies are only natural. If you eat anything unnatural, it'll just go through you and come back out, okay? And that's a big thing. Well, yeah, because we talk about eating, sleeping, standing, walking, sitting, hydration, all the things that we do, actually, literally, all of them, no joke, physically as a human being. And, when I talk about how diets are kind of a joke, I think the biggest thing to tell anybody is, if food has anything unnatural in it, it's not food. There's no such thing as unnatural until we make things out of our doings, rather than just eating things that God designed, whether it is plants or animals, because I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat any meat, is really what I mean by that. And when I choose what food to eat, this is just good context, and we'll probably talk about this more often going forth than I have. We just need to be looking for food that doesn't have anything in it that says artificial, okay, or unnatural, okay? Yeah, that's the biggest thing, and that's the easiest thing, because I eat a lot of stuff that's not what people would think of as like eating super healthy, but I eat things that are at least, majority natural, because that's the whole point, is your body just can't do anything with anything that's not natural. So tonight I ate some Chinese food, but really American Chinese food, right? And it was weird for me because I was like, yeah, I just felt so weird doing it. And the people that I was sitting with, they didn't really realize that there was anything about it. And I wouldn't have in the past either. And now it's almost like something that I don't even look at as actual food. With all the preservatives in it and everything that it is, yeah. But there's no specific diet that anybody should ever try to be on because of any outside reason or whatever. Just natural. The goal is natural on all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company, as we've said since the founding. So that's really all you have to look for. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Another fourth of us is In the Image Clothing Company Music, where I show how to size and set up guitars to not alter the hands, because our hands are essentially our shoulders and our feet are essentially our hips, okay? The body can only ever work activated as a whole. It just would, unless otherwise restricted by anything. So there you go. Also, music that I make is placed on In the Image Clothing Company Music. And I make some pretty cool music, actually. Another fourth of us is In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, okay? We specialize in purebred standard poodles. Holy heavens. Yeah, okay. We have, to come as of today's date, our In the Image Clothing Company Poodles purebred standard poodle breeding program, okay, registered through AKC, the American Kennel Club, proper dogs. But our whole slogan for that fourth of the company, In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, is letting dogs stay natural. We talk about flooring that's flat and slippery, that's unnatural for the dogs, dehydrated food, kibble, okay, the water's been extracted from it, it's very unnatural, toys and things placed onto dogs made out of unnatural materials that should never be on or around the dogs, and then the dogs are eating those things. Collars, leashes, harnesses, any accessory placed onto dogs is often imbalanced, and yeah, it doesn't let the dog stay centered, because the dog has a center line as well, a spine, a trachea, the nose, a sternum, and gravity just pulls on it the same way that it pulls on human beings. So we do a lot of advocacy for proper breeding of dogs, purebred dogs, and the importance of that, taking accountability as owners of dogs, and just being good dog owners and how to. We debunk myths on why dogs don't listen, things like rattly dog tags just jingling around their neck when you're trying to tell them things and there's just something distracting them audibly, okay? So, yeah, we do a lot under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, okay? Poodle parade events where we get together purebred poodles of any size and or poodle mixes of any size as the only dog breeds allowed, and go on walks, hikes, hang out at parks, talk about all that we know when it comes to all that we do under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, and just have a good time, okay? InTheImageClothingCompany.com, okay, where all the products will always be puppies, yes. In the Image Clothing Company clothing for human beings, and In the Image Clothing Company dog products as well, okay? Same intent behind human being clothing for the dog products, collars and things, right? Natural materials and minimal light, brandless on the exterior, okay? Where we can, right? So there you go, okay? Clothing for everybody has to sit in the same location to not alter the body. Pants need to be entirely above our hips, so there's no restriction to the hips. Slightly higher in the front than the rear with the waistband angle, because our core muscles just need to do the only thing they ever and always just would, which is work. And that's just the position that we allow our hips to stay neutral and our spine in while we have pants on. Okay, the slipped lap knot when it comes to drawstrings is what we use. On the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, there's a video titled How Drawstrings Affect Body Mechanics. And yeah, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, that's what I show. Because when we introduce ropes to the body, it can potentially just rotate the entire body to the tip of the head, the tips of the fingers, the tip of the toes. So there you go, okay? Waistbands need to be evenly horizontal, and that's what that knot will do, okay? Yes, rather than just tying a drawstring around your waist and twisting your entire pelvis, okay? Like one of those directions, right? You tie a right-handed knot and your pelvis goes forward and left. You tie a left-handed knot and your pelvis goes forward and right, okay? Yeah, I did a little visual demonstration for those in visual plus audio of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, but if you're in just audio only, well, now you know we are available in both forms, okay? In the Image Clothing Company podcast. So, the tops that we wear have seams on top of our shoulders. They have to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders because our shoulders only ever work behind our head, and button-ups naturally sit behind the top of our shoulders with a band of material rather than just the single seam that's on most t-shirt designs, okay? The edges of our shoulders have an edge, okay? The tops that we wear, though, the seams need to just be where the functionality of that joint is at the shoulder, okay? Otherwise, it just can't function. Two things we have as prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company. They're conditional because there's not always ropes that we call shoelaces placed around our feet. But there's only one way you can weave a rope across the top of the human foot and not alter the mechanics of that. And that's what we title In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, found wherever you can find our 5-word name as a whole, In the Image Clothing Company. And with that, we also tie shoes. The lacing affects the arch's ability to have room to be there in the feet, right? Those gripped arches. But tying affects rotations, traveling up through the whole entire body, to the tip of the fingers and the tip of the head. So we tie our shoes evenly over toward the inside on both feet to the center line of the human being. And I was 24 before I started doing that. Okay, so don't feel like you're left out if you have been tying your shoes uneven. It's a very common thing to have happen. And it's a very, very, very chronically damaging thing to the entirety of your body. Speaking out of personal experience, as I do, okay? Preaching what I have practiced, as I do, okay? Yeah, in the Image Clothing Company podcast, there's an episode of that titled that. Something along the lines of preaching what you practice or preaching what I have practiced, whatever the exact title is, okay? And in addition to the shoelacing, our second prerequisite is to remove all tags from clothing. Anywhere a tag is in clothing, it's causing a physical gap, just changing your body's only workings because there truly is only one way the human body could ever work, and or it's just not allowing musculature to activate. So, yeah, that's the body's workings, but it's either a positional thing or activation just not happening, okay? So, episode 123 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled, yeah, It's Not Their Fault. I'm going to start with this little bit of a story. When I was a wee little boy, okay, I took my records out of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for a little bit over a year, about 13 months, okay, and then I got rebaptized into it, and it was all voluntarily on my part, but I've documented those stories under In the Image Clothing Company podcast. The episode where I discussed my second baptism was called The Second Time Around, and during the time where I, wasn't a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, voluntarily, kind of. I mean, I got deceived, but it was me that got deceived and asked for my records to be removed. Not good, but good, because I learned from it, okay? Like Alma the Younger in the Book of Mormon. Anyway, we were at church one week with my grandparents, and I want to say this, right? In no way am I saying anything bad about them in this, but I'm using this as an example because of what the title is. It's not their fault. So, coming up on, well, time for me to get rebaptized, okay? Just meaning throughout the time when I wasn't a member, which was just, somewhere around from February to February 2024 to 2025, okay, for reference. I went to church one Sunday with my grandparents, who I live with and who have been so gracious with me to let me live with them. Yeah. But one Sunday I went with them, okay, because I wasn't going to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for quite a while there, as I'm saying. Yikes. Terrible, terrible. Me saying that, yeah, so bad. I publicly was saying things against the the true church, and I was living in hell. So there you go. Yeah, but I learned a lot. And when we were sitting there, we have sacrament meeting, okay, in church, and we partake of the sacrament. We take a little piece of bread as remembrance of the body of Jesus Christ, who died for us and gave his body in our place. And then we drink out of just a small little cup, just a little bit of water, as remembrance of the blood of Jesus Christ that was shed for us when he atoned for all of our sins. Yeah, when he died. And well, before he got resurrected. That's the main point. That's why he died, is so that he could get resurrected and go in our place as the perfect example that we will then, follow to the best of our sinful ways, right? Check that out. And so we're sitting there in sacrament meeting, and well, yeah, because they bless the water, and they bless the bread, and it's an ordinance, really. It's actually, yeah, it's a big deal, really. And I'll get into what I'm saying. When it came around, because they have trays that they pass the little water cups in, and then a tray they pass little broken up pieces of bread in. It's a resemblance of the Last Supper as well. When Jesus Christ did that with his 12 disciples. Because they ate and drank on that last night they had together before Christ was crucified. And as I'm sitting here in sacrament meeting with my grandparents, it was just the three of us, and they come around, with the trays of the bread and water, and I was getting ready to take it. And the thing is, I was in a place I shouldn't be, but really, in a way, it wasn't that I shouldn't, because like I'm saying, well, yeah, it doesn't matter what I'm saying, but yeah. All things work together for the good of those that serve God. And even things like that seem so wrong, it worked to deepen my relationship with Jesus Christ as he says that he is. And, sometimes these periods of separation are actually really good. I used to, well, it doesn't matter if I used to. I mean, it's just something I've talked about is like necessary separations in our lives from things really deepen our understanding of our need for them. And that's really what happened, and like Alma the Younger's story in the Book of Mormon, like Simon Peter's story in the Holy Bible, where Simon Peter, he denied Jesus Christ on that night when they had their Last Supper, and then Jesus Christ got crucified. Christ himself told Peter that before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. And Peter's like, no, what are you talking about? Because Peter was like God's right-hand disciple. Yet there he is in front of him in the flesh, and he denies knowing him and being his disciple because God himself, Jesus Christ, is being persecuted and accused for things he didn't do because he lived a perfectly sinless life. And Peter then denied that he knew him because otherwise he'd be, questioned and be getting in trouble for being his disciple. So necessary separation, right? Because then Peter went on after to do huge things, and Alma the Younger as well. Okay, bring a lot of souls to repentance and baptize a lot of people and just preach the gospel. Okay, so as we're sitting here in sacrament meeting, I took the sacrament, and my grandparents. This is where you use that phrase, like, and bless their heart, but this is what I mean. Like, it's not their fault. They didn't know, but they kind of tried to not let me be able to take it. And yeah, because what they understood was it's for baptized members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that's not the case. Yeah, that's kind of really, who it's intended for, because when we do partake of this sacrament, it's like not just like it's a renewal of our baptismal covenant, where we covenant when we get baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, meaning we promise to God, and we can't actually uphold it because we're sinful by nature human beings, but to take his name upon us, to always remember him. And yeah, you can look up, again, go to the source. When I talk about this, always go to the actual source, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the blessings, the prayers over the sacrament, you can find them and read them as they are said, and you can just attend a sacrament meeting as well. All visitors are welcome. And that's kind of the point of what I'm saying here. They thought that you just, you were excluded, and you couldn't take the sacrament if you weren't a baptized member, and that's not the case. Really, it is, like I'm saying, a renewal of the covenant that we've made as baptized members. So each week, it's almost like getting rebaptized symbolically, right? I mean, because when we get baptized, we get washed clean of our sins through Jesus Christ and his atoning sacrifice, his redemption power, because he is God. And so as we take the sacrament on Sundays, it's kind of like a washing clean and a re-promising to remember Christ throughout the rest of the week. And so, I had been outside of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for months, and I went this Sunday after, a period within this time that I'm talking about of dogging on the church, man, and saying all these terrible things that weren't true, but stuff that, I was deceived and obviously not myself to those who knew me, Yeah, well, yeah, not at all. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I'm pretty sure it's episode number 110, titled I Feel Like Myself Again. And that's why, is because I got rebaptized and because I'm actually going back to the true church to worship God as he is again. And I wasn't doing that. There's been many periods in my life where I just wasn't doing that, even as a baptized member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But they were telling me, like, yeah, no, like trying to kind of pulling it away from me, the sacrament tray, and like no, like, because it's a very respectful thing, you don't say anything, and we just sit there quietly and just kind of reflect inwardly on our relationship with God himself, Jesus Christ. And I took the sacrament, I kind of almost like got in there a little forcefully, because my grandparents, they're passing it to me, and I'm like, no, I'm taking this, and then after sacrament meeting was over, I was very, very, very blunt and clear. And I turned to them. I'm like, well, because I'm just sitting right next to them, right? But I just look at them. And yeah, I just said so clearly, like, it is not your place to tell anybody else if they can or cannot take the sacrament. And I was just so blunt, and I kind of like hit them to the core, rightfully so. Okay, yeah. But that's the whole point of the title of this episode 123 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It's not their fault, because it is a serious thing, taking the sacrament. It's a very spiritual, very deeply personal thing between you and the one and only true God. And so they were just trying to do it how they knew it should be done properly. And a big thing is we talk about not partaking of the sacrament unworthily. Is that how you say that? Unworthily, yes. And so, yeah, I was not by any means worthy in the ways that I wasn't, but I mean, who is worthy? You know, nobody but God himself. We're imperfect and he's perfect. But it's about our intent, and I had come to church that day, not to try to please them because they wanted me to, but I wanted to. I was kind of like on the cusp of turning back to where I needed to be and realizing how much hell I was in because of what I had done, removing my records voluntarily from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so in moments like that, it's not wrong for me to have taken the sacrament. And it's not wrong for unbaptized people at all, right? Whether they're baptized just as a Christian, as a disciple of Jesus Christ, into just the body of Christ, or whether they're actually baptized through the authority that we hold in the priesthood of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Regardless, anybody can partake of this sacrament, but you just need to know what you're doing, right? There should be, if there can be, a little explanation of what this is that we're doing, why we're all sitting here quietly, why it's a reverent thing, and they're passing around these little tiny cups of water and little pieces of bread. But everybody can take it. They just ideally have an understanding of why we're even doing it, okay? And so it wasn't wrong at all for me to do that in that moment, by any means. And it struck my grandparents to the core, man, when I was that bold with them about it. And good. But the point is, it wasn't their fault, because you know they were one of the biggest people in my life that was really trying to get me to see that I needed to come back to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so they weren't having the intention to do anything wrong, but that's why there's that phrase, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. They had the good intention of keeping the ordinance, meaning, you know, partaking of the sacrament, what it should be and what they understood. And they just weren't quite right. That's fine to not be right, but it wasn't fine by any means to tell me that I couldn't take it. And so there's a lot of things like this in life, man, where it's just not people's fault, you know? And yeah, because I say very often, I have, and you know, up until today in the Image Clothing Company humbled. In the Image Clothing Company, though, all sides, but in the Image Clothing Company podcast, I just feel like I'm like humble as can be, dude. Like, just, yeah. Humbled, not like I'm so humble, right? No, but I say very often, because it's actually scripture, it's out of the mouth of God himself in his eternal word. We don't know what we don't know, and we can't be held accountable for what we don't know. And that goes directly to this episode 123 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled It's Not Their Fault. Because if they don't know, if I don't know, if we're saying something, if we're doing something and it's not right, but we think that we're doing it to the best of our knowing, well, then we can't be held accountable for it. And that's just how it is, because that's just how it is. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, you see this a lot culturally across the earth, because, I mean, you go to a different continent and it feels like you're in an entirely different world sometimes, okay? If you've heard the term culture shock, because we have different cultures on the earth, and sometimes it seems like you are on a different planet. Yeah. And so people get after other people for doing things at times, thinking they're doing something that's evil or so wrong, and that person's not at all. But to you, you might just know all that you know, and that's it. And so you're getting after somebody, trying to tell them to not do something that there's nothing wrong with. Yeah, we just don't know what we don't know, man. And it's just not your fault. This is a big one. I talk about how I've got such a problem with specialists. And I say it like that because, yes, most definitely. The human body can only ever work as a whole, activated in its entirety. Anywhere any of your body goes, the rest of it has to come as well. I've used the analogy quite a bit under In the Image Clothing Company content. It's like watching a play, and if somebody doesn't show up for one of the roles in the play just doesn't play out. And that's how the human body is. If there's anything within it that isn't working correct, something else and many things have to compensate, as something I've said as well many times under In the Image Clothing Company content. But the human body cannot compensate because that's why every part of it's there, is because it has a role it has to play. So where I'm going with this is, I say the phrase, and it's the truth, clothing is the only fix to human beings' physical problems, even internal things, because there's only one neutral position to every joint in the human body, and it just has to reside in that. And people just don't know what they don't know. And so the title of this episode 123 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, It's Not Their Fault, goes to physical therapists, chiropractors, orthopedic people, personal trainers, and the people that I talk about me, yes, having a problem with. And I most definitely do, because you can never address only part of your body. You have to look at it as a whole. And some people just don't know. Yeah. But then the big thing is, as I talk about, who's going to know that you need to modify your clothing to allow your body to work? Otherwise, there's deep, deep, deep chronic damage happening to it. You purchase clothing from somebody, and the intent is to just put it on and wear it. And if there's any imbalance in clothing, as we say, just as it is, it goes straight to the body that it's placed onto. All we do is hold our clothing off the ground all day, unless any of it's touching the actual earth. And yeah, okay. But also stretch within clothing. It goes the opposite direction of the only way muscles could ever work. Every muscle in the body can only contract. There's a video on the main site of In the Image Clothing Company titled Muscles Only Contract. But if you don't know, you don't know. Because, I mean, I didn't know until I did, right? I was wearing stretchy clothing until 24 years old. Like, this is the whole thing, is it wasn't my fault. In the ways that clothing was causing my body to be in such damage and chronic pain and patterning, no. And it's not the people's fault who just happen to also be a chiropractor, a physical therapist, a personal trainer, right? These things that, even a massage therapist, a yoga instructor, like really all of these things that are about the functionality of the human body physically across the earth, because it's literally just a mechanical machine. If they are wearing stretchy clothing themselves because they just don't know, then they're not going to be able to give you proper information. But there is only one truth, regardless of who knows it or not. It's not your fault for not knowing, but whether it is your intention or not, you are leading people astray by giving information that's not the one and only truth, because that's Jesus Christ, our God himself, the undisputed. Episode 122 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled North Star, right? The thing that doesn't ever change. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that just aren't any of our faults by any means, but they're still extremely damaging to us. So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think, this is a good thing to say. And I make it pretty clear when I say it, but when I do talk about how much of a problem I have with these people, it's not the individuals, but it's the information they're giving because it is false. This is where I'm coming from, is it's not their fault, but that's why I say so clear and quite often under In the Image Clothing Company content, do not believe us. Don't believe me, Evan Strong is the founder, or just the information we say. But if it's working, then it works. I mean, there's only truth, and truth is truth, regardless. Because that's the whole thing is, it's a one and done. I mean, you get your clothing fitting on your body correct, you get it out of its chronic patterning, and it just works. Okay? And it just does. I'm not trying to claim it. That's what I mean. Don't believe it, but try. And if it works, then there you go. And it will, no doubt. Okay? I mean, there's stuff that comes along with it, but yes, it's the only fix to human beings' physical pain. Well, not even just pain. All pain means is your body has something wrong with it, and it's telling you that through pain being the avenue of delivering that information to you. Okay? So, yeah, just inability to work in any way. It's coming from clothing. Yes. Okay. So there's a lot of things, though, that just aren't people's fault by any means. And yeah, you know, I haven't said it as much in the more recent From This Point Back episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, but please leave me alone. If you see me in public or whatever it is. Okay. Tonight I was at Institute for the second time this week. There's two different age groups, and I actually have been going to both of them. One's on Tuesday night, and the other one is on Wednesday, which is today. But yes, within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have like a Sunday school type class throughout the week, okay? And we call it Institute. Yeah. After I ate this Panda Express, shout out to the actual place. I'm not trying to dog on them, but yeah, this American Chinese food. Okay, that's just it's a restaurant chain. Yeah, again, right? It's not their fault. I'm not trying to dog on the company of Panda Express, but it's just processed food. It's unnatural. Period and done. There's only one natural, right? It's God's creations. And then human beings take those and manipulate them into other things that are fake. Okay. But in times and places, as I say, right? Of course, for everything. We're not perfect, nor ever will be in this life. No, by no means. Okay. But after I ate, I was putting this table away into this table closet at the church, and this guy started talking to me, and that's great. You know, he said he liked my beard. My beard's pretty long right now, for those in audio only. Okay. But that's cool. He asked me my name, and I didn't respond to his comment on my beard, and I just said my name. And you know, he reached out and shook my hand, and so I shook his. And then I put the table away, and then I was walking back into the area where the tables were placed. It's just like a basketball gym in our church. And then he walks up to me again, and he says, "So what are you doing right now, Evan?" And I said, "I'm putting some tables away." And he said, well, I mean, you know, what do you do for work? And I didn't say anything. I kind of just sat there. Well, I mean, I'm walking to go grab more tables was my intention. And I just didn't really say much. I was kind of looking at him, and he says, or what do you do in life? You know, and I was like, I'm just not a fan of small talk. And before I said that, though, I said it depends on the day. Because I was trying to give him an answer and be attentive with him without actually answering a question that, regardless of how offensive this sounds, truthfully, to me, is pointless. I don't need him to know what I do for work. No, regardless of if I have a job or not, regardless of if I'm a millionaire, a billionaire, a trillionaire, or if I'm dead broke with no dollar to my name, which is actually the case, literally, today. Yes, but it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered on either end. I don't care to talk about that. I'm in the middle of walking to grab more tables to put them away after eating some food that I wasn't even so fond of, but it was my choice. I did it out of my own doings. But you see what I mean? The whole point is it's not his fault, right? So, yeah, yeah. And then after I said those things that I said, first I was, yeah, just kind of trying to, say it without saying it. I was like, it depends on the day. And then he's like, well, yeah, but what do you do for work? And then I said that, I'm like, I'm just not into small talk. And he says, oh, okay, okay. And I said, I appreciate you, but yeah, that's actually literally how I worded it. I said, I appreciate you. I'm just not into small talk. And, cause yeah, I mean, that's, he's a friendly person, and that's, what he was doing is being friendly, trying to have a conversation, but I didn't want to have one. I was in the middle of something, and I don't care for people to know what I do, because context here for this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, yeah, outside of my family, I think there's one human being on the earth that I have personally told about In the Image Clothing Company at all. And I've had this for 9 months. I don't talk about myself is the point. So it was nothing to do with him and like me having anything against him, but I just don't talk about myself because if I don't need to, I don't need to, okay? And yeah, because I mean, some of these people that go to the same church as me, I see multiple times every single week. And as far as I'm aware, not a single one of them, well, besides the one person that I'm talking about, one of my friends, I told her, yeah, I guess not her brother, but right, yeah, and then yeah. The point is, I just don't talk about myself, and it's not about me. I don't care to. Okay, and so these people who see me almost, 3 times give or take a week, at least once, twice, usually each week at this time period at this church, building, like the specific building that I go to is what I mean. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they don't know what I do. And I'm not being secretive, but I don't care to have people know. Like, I think the big thing with this is, In the Image Clothing Company, it's growing, if you want to use the word organically, authentically. It's growing at the speed that it's growing. I'm not out there trying to like tell everybody how great I'm doing something that you should be so interested in, okay? Because that's what I say. It's not about me, and truth is truth. And so, well, this is great though, because everything is date marked, and now as of today's date that's still the case. Seriously, a handful of people I've talked about In the Image Clothing Company with. That one friend of mine, and then some of her friends, we've kind of talked when we've all been together, and that's it. Okay, outside of my own family, and even them, I don't even know how much of my own family actually knows about In the Image Clothing Company, truly, because I just don't talk, dude. And so the point is, it's not that kid's fault tonight for trying to strike up a conversation with me, and I didn't really have anything against him necessarily, but I mean, it's just silly. Well, it's silly because I've done the same thing. I remember one time, because I was thinking about this after it happened. I'm like, man, yeah, I remember doing this specific thing. I was in sacrament meeting. I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and on the first Sunday of each month, we have what we call fast and testimony meeting in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And during our sacrament meeting, we each can, get up if you'd like to, and just go up to the pulpit in the front of the chapel and bear your testimony of Jesus Christ. And, it can be just like a minute or two or 5. They have been saying lately, keep it pretty brief so that people can come up, because it is only every, first Sunday. And so the people that do want to come up, you want to make time for them to be able to do so. But sharing your testimony of God himself strengthens other people's testimony of him as well. And anyway, this time I'm talking about, it was somewhere around a couple years ago. I was sitting in the chapel, and yeah, anyway, it wasn't even a fast and testimony meeting. It was just her giving a talk one day. There was this woman who got up and gave a talk, and after sacrament meeting ended, she, came off the stand up there, and everybody's getting out of the chapel to go into a classroom, and then we have our hour-long class after our hour-long sacrament meeting. And I kind of almost got in her way as she's walking through the pews, right, to just get out of the chapel once sacrament meeting had ended. And I was like, "Hi, my name's Evan," and I got in her face and shook her hand as if she would care. Oh heavens. And that's kind of what this kid did tonight, right? He thought I was cool, and so he kind of got in my face. But that's where the title of this episode 123 of In the Image Clothing Company comes in. Well, In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It's not his fault, and it wasn't my fault. I thought she was cool, this girl, a couple years ago in this story, who gave the talk. I wanted to just talk to her, and I, yeah, didn't do it in a way that was respectful by any means. And that's how this kid was tonight. And we just don't know what we don't know, right? That's what I mean. So, but that's why I say it so clear. And at this time period, I've said it tens and tens of times at least in the Image Clothing Company podcast episodes alone. Leave me alone, right? And I mean it, because yeah, regardless of if it's today and the situation that I just talked about, or if we have literally billions of people who know about In the Image Clothing Company. And Evan Strong, me personally, who is speaking right now, I am the founder, okay? And for life, it's my company. So leave me alone, regardless of when it is, how whatever comes about. Please, okay? Leave me alone. And I mean it, okay? Because I think we forget sometimes that people are just people, and you see somebody that's like in a role, and you respect their role, or you appreciate what they're doing, or you just think it's cool, or whatever it is, and all of a sudden people get treated like something that's not a person. It's like a thing. Oh my heavens. So yes. Anyway, yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I've made it so clear, even before today's date, right? Before anything ever gets any bigger than it currently is. Yes. Okay. But then that's why it's that yeah. Because we have events as well, right? In the Image Clothing Company Poodle Parades, and our events for the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, and those are me scheduling those events to get together with people. So times and places, right? So just be respectful. But it's like this, when you see a dog, and we talk about, because we do a lot of advocacy for dogs on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. Always talk to the owner of the dog. Do not go directly to the dog. It's like going up to somebody's young child and talking to them rather than talking to the adult first. And that's where the title comes from, episode 123 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It's not your fault. The title is actually, it's not their fault. But sometimes you just don't know. And, right, so, yeah. It's things like that, you go up and pet somebody's dog without even addressing the owner of the dog, and that's very intrusive and actually just opposing what the dog is trained to do as, even just basic obedience training, to ignore people around them. So, yeah, okay, so this is what I mean. There's a lot of things in life that are just not our fault, and knowledge is great, okay? We don't need to focus on just trying to be so knowledgeable. The whole point of this entire existence on this planet is to get closer to Jesus Christ. And God is spirit and truth. God is not intellect, right? Like our brain is intellect, the human being. Yeah. But it is beautiful to know things because, right, if you don't know these things, then you don't know, and you cannot be held accountable, okay, for what you do not know. So that's why sometimes it's a test of our patience to try to be kind with people when they are actually being intrusive and they just don't realize it, and so, Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm a really reserved person. I've got a very boisterous, loud voice, and I speak so blunt and bold, but I love to be left alone. I love solitude, just meaning being alone. And yeah, I'm just a kid from Utah who loves standard poodles, and you know what I mean? Like seriously, that's I mean it. Like, and so yeah, and that's the case with a lot of these people, man, who are in positions where a lot of people know of them. You know, they don't like know them, but um, yeah, you know, we got to realize people are just people. So, yeah, as I say, right? If you talk to me in public or try to, and I seem so standoffish or even offensive to you, great, get offended. But you've just come up to another human being and expected them to have a conversation with you, and I'm just another person who's just passing by. Leave me to be. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Okay. But yeah, a lot of things just aren't our fault. And it goes into relationships as well, you know. A lot of people don't know how to be in relationships, man. And it just takes experience, you know, going through things to know how to react and respond. And some people just don't have that diverse of experience, whether it's because of their age or just because of how their life has been. I mean, somebody can be 95 years old and have less life experience than like an 8-year-old child. That's true. And so a lot of times people will say things. I mean, like I've heard stories about like somebody, you know, like a white person seeing a black man for the first time, and they're like, you know, like a little kid is that the story that I heard. You know, they were talking about it, and just how it was kind of silly. And the little kid looks up to their mom and it's like, "Look, mom, it's the chocolate man." It's like they don't know. This little kid's only seen white people, and now they see somebody that's got black skin, and they don't know. And so that's what I mean. It's not their fault, you know, because I mean, yeah, you can definitely get calling someone with black skin all sorts of things. It's like mean, you know. But a kid like that, they just, I mean, it's not their fault, you know. And so we need to realize that too, myself included. You know, everything I ever say, it goes to me as well. You know, I'm just as human as anybody else, even though I'm the one that's speaking like words of understanding, if you will. I mean, I still have to be as understanding of them as anybody else ideally is, I guess, right? I mean, yeah, and the way we do that is just by looking to God. Jesus Christ is our perfect example. We wouldn't know how to do anything otherwise. But yeah, you know, sometimes people say things that seem just so offensive and so like out of nowhere, so out of context, or like something that's a direct assault, actually, even like a verbal assault or whatever. It could be physical, even in ways, right? And it's not their fault. They just don't know, you know? Because some people, maybe they grew up with people and they have some kind of greeting with each other that is physical. Like they, you know, some men think they're all manly and they like hit each other. And if somebody does that to you and you haven't had that happen in the past and you don't want it to happen, if they do it to you, you might be like, "Holy dude, what are you doing?" You know, like trying to start a fight with me? Why are you being so mean? You know? But they're just like, "Well, this is how I greet my buddies." Yeah, right? It's actually seriously not even that guy's fault for hitting you. As weird as that is, and it has to be seen with context, and you know, obviously every situation is unique in everything, but that's the whole thing is it's not his fault, you know. And people who talk about other people in ways that seem so intentionally offensive, maybe they're not being offensive out of their doings by any means, but it just sounds like it to you. But you know, they just don't know better on how to maybe approach something, or they've just never really been in that experience quite like that before, so they don't really approach it in a very respectful way, you know. But it's kind of not their fault. It's like somebody coming to church who has just, you know, had a habit of swearing so often, and their regular speech in their daily life is just throwing swear words in every few words in their conversations, and they step into a church and they're swearing. And in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we try not to be cussing at all, in life, but I do, most definitely. But then especially at church, like you want to be, speaking respectfully, as respectful as we can, according to what that means by Jesus Christ himself, right? Because it's the house of the Lord. It says that on the outside of our churches and our temples, right? In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's like going into God's house and doing things that are opposing what he has the rules of his house being. But if you don't know what his house rules are, then then it's not your fault. Truly. So there you go, man. I mean, that's what's so cool about this, and a lot of times it's you can't be blamed for it, whatever it could be, if you just don't know. Yeah. Yeah, and within the legal system of the United States of America, that's notice how I say that, America. But currently, that's how it is. You are innocent until proven guilty. It's exactly the same thing because that's God's words. Okay. Yeah, and we are, as citizens of the United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the end of our whatever it's called. Yeah, Pledge of Allegiance for our country, right? Yeah, so there you go, dude. You can't be held accountable for things you don't know. So, as hard as that is sometimes for us that do know, and we're dealing with people that we feel should, right? Yeah, sometimes people just don't know. And, in a lot of ways, ignorance is a good teacher because we learn from our mistakes more than anything else in life, really. And yeah, that's why we're given the ability to choose by God, because he didn't have to give us the ability to choose. He didn't have to create an earth for us to come to, and he didn't have to create our bodies for us to dwell within as spirit children of his. But he did it the way that he did, and now here we are on an earth with a lot of things that we don't know and a lot of things that we never will in this life. And we can't be held accountable for those. So, yeah, it's not our fault if we don't know. Okay? So there you go. Okay? Episode 123 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Thank you. Okay, stick around for the poodles. Stick around for Poodle Parade events if you've got a poodle mix or a purebred poodle. Yeah. Hang out, man. Today's the 21st of May, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company. Thank you.